Coldharbor Lore, Part 2. I was summoned by a mortal, by Kinval Zendenkathik of Clan Deathbringer. For as long as I can remember, and like all Dremora, my memory is keen, especially for grievances. I have faithfully served the officers of my clan, and through them my lord Molag Bal, and yet not always. For once, to my shame, I was compelled to serve another. I was on guard duty at the Endless Stare, an assignment I always enjoy, where I can mock and torment the passing soul-shriven without being held responsible for them meeting their quotas. Leaping out from behind a claw pillar while shouting, "There you are, weakling," it just never loses its appeal. I was lurking behind a dark anchor chain link, preparing to terrify an approaching soul-shriven by suddenly knocking her down and sneering. No match at all. When suddenly I felt a strange tingling all over, from my horns down to my toes. I grew dizzy as the plane spun around me, nearly fell into a pool of blue plasm, and then suddenly felt myself hurled into an endless black void. I wasn't alarmed at first, because who hasn't been hurled into an endless black void before? It wasn't until I began to materialize at my destination and got a taste of the air that I had my first misgivings. I smell weakness, I said to myself, and I couldn't have been more right. It was then that I first heard the voice of my conjurer as he said, this one looks fairly robust," and the full horror of my situation broke upon me, for I had been summoned to do the bidding of a mortal. I turned aghast to see who had dared summon me across the infinities of Nirn, and found myself faced with a tall elf of Somerset. Oh, I recognized the type. I'd abused more than a few Ultima soul-shriven in my time, and with gutso, for they evince a haughty arrogance entirely inappropriate in mere mortals. This one gave me a brief, appraising look, and then turned away, saying, "Follow and fight. There are worm cultists that need slaying." Worm cultists? Can you imagine the ignominy, fellow kine? Not only had I been conjured away from my duty by one of the hated elven mortals, but I must serve him by slaying the minions of Manamarco, our dread lord's lieutenant and viceroy-to-be. I tried to resist, flexing my indomitable will, but the mortal mage's binding spell was too strong. All I could do was say, "No one escapes," and follow him past a pair of torches into a subterranean maze of tunnels. "You serve the great Vanus Galarian, Dremora," my conjurer announced, quite unnecessarily. What need had I known to name the name of my slave master? But then I reconsidered and mentally added his name to that long list that each of us keeps, the list labeled Vengeance. I followed, not deigning to crouch where my conjurer hunked over to sneak, merely glaring at him and thinking, "I will feast upon your heart." In truth, however, it was as well that I had this elf Vanus to follow, for the tunnels were many and twisting, and though we Dremora are fearless, relentless, and unparalleled among warriors throughout Oblivion, our sense of direction is rather poor. When doing courier duty, I've been known to lose my way right in the middle of the moonless walk and wind up back at the lightless oubliette from where I started. In this time, Vanus began to pause frequently, listening, which only increased my irritation and impatience. Finally, he stopped with a "shh" to me, which was completely unfair, as I hadn't said a word. But I realized why he stopped when I suddenly heard human speech from the tunnel ahead. Hesitating nary an instant, I drew my great sword and rushed forward, crying, "A challenger is near!" The elf cursed and followed, but he'd only himself to blame. I was following his orders exactly. The next minute passed in a red fury that all true Dremora feel when they enter battle. But my usual enjoyment of bloody slaughter was tainted by the knowledge that I was killing those my dread warlord would prefer I didn't. And frankly, that just ruined the whole experience for me. As I lopped off the limbs and heads of the worm cultists, I was aware of the energies of the elves' powerful magics crackling past me, incinerating the more distant enemies. But I was too mortified to enjoy the orgy of destruction. The elf came striding up as I subdivided the final worm, anchorite gloating, "So much for that. Take that, Manamarco." "There could be no other end," I replied sourly, and then felt the strange tingling again as the conjuration that brought me to Nirn began to weaken. As the bonds dissolved, I took one menacing step towards the elf, but then the plane spun around me again, and it was back into the endless black void. When I came to my senses, I was lying in a pool of turquoise slime, looking up at the smiling face of my superior, Kynreeve Zalorking. "So," he snarled, "straying from your post when on duty, eh? It's the scathe rings for you, my lad." "But Kynreeve," I cried, leaping to attention, "I couldn't help it. I was conjured, summoned to Nirn by a mortal." He smiled even wider. "And that'll be an extra shift scathing for telling such a hornless lie. Now march," he shouted, thumping me with his truncheon. "Left, right, left, right, left, right." I hate it when he smiles. Kynreeve or not, his name is going on my list as well. Oath of a Dishonoured Clan by Lyrinth. Resting never again until our purpose be achieved, ever watchful for an opportunity to repay the wrong. Valkinus Ceres, we shall extract the fee for betrayal. Even our duty to the overkin is transcended by this. Never again to hear the name Foolkiller's Clan. Agony. Generous we will be with those who aid our purpose, ending the false ascendant of the Deathbringer clan. Protocols of the Court of Contempt by Judge Zivan. All proceedings shall be strictly on the record unless said proceedings are ordered stricken from the record. The guilty shall address this court with all due respect or receive condign punishment as appropriate from Magistrate Bogtroll. The guilty shall be entitled counsel in the form of scamps duly outfitted in periwigs. However, scamps due to their inveterate vulgarity are forbidden to speak in the court of contempt. The guilty are invited to express their indignation at the proceedings at length and in the most heated terms for the entertainment of the judge and the magistrate. The reputation for the fairness of the Court of Contempt is proven by its 100% conviction rate of the guilty. Take them away. The Black Forge. Inventory report by Kyngeld Nazgrixor. Raw materials for the Great Shackle. Supplies of ebony alloy cold iron are stable at 17,500 tons, but that's barely enough to forge the shackle given the typical rate of loss in the casting process. It might be wise to send for another 2,000 tons from the mine burrows in the side of the mountainous copse of the Iron Colossus. Better safe than sorry. I am honored to report that we have discovered the source of the depletion of the supplies of the charcoal of remorse. Cinder imps had been getting into the vault through a forgotten plasm duct and gorging on the Sea of R. We learned this when we found one so bloated it was unable to get back through the duct opening. We sent in an explosive ductworm which found the nest and discorporated all the cinder imps. Deficits in the supply of charcoal of remorse have been made up by increasing the torment quotas on the Kothringi soul shriven. I don't wish to be one to point talons, but it is my duty to report that even if the shackle is forged according to schedule, we will not be able to quench it if we do not receive our shipment of the blood of 1,000 innocents. We have gotten repeated assurances from the extinguisher that our shipment will be on its way at any shift now, but so far all we've received are promises. I hesitate to elevate this to the Overkin level, but I think it's high time the matter was looked into. I hope you've been enjoying these lore readings, and if you have, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Also, come follow me over on twitch.tv/ICYIC, where I stream the Elder Scrolls Online 4 days a week. I'd love to see you there. Thanks for watching.